Good morning, everyone. First of all, thanks for taking time on a Saturday or a weekend morning and spending time to learn something new. So, first and foremost, thanks for that. And I'll make sure, next 1 hour, whatever the investment you are gonna make for next 1 hour with me, that is fruitful. I'm going to do is I'm just gonna quickly introduce myself, and today, what we'll be speaking from now for next 30 odd minutes is just to show the glimpse of how this training will be, what and all, which we'll be covering, and how it is going to be there, what is the future, all that is what we are going to discuss. And then subsequently, I will also be telling what and all we'll be learning as a part of the other things in this training, and so on. So we'll start with a very quick introduction. Myself, Sarvesh, and this is my own website. I will be also sharing this, not to give much of marketing stuff, getting into the action. I carry close to 12 years of experience in SAP as a whole. Started myself as an ABAP consultant, and then into GRC, and then into audit, and now I do kind of combination of both business process consulting as well as technical consulting. I have been in entrepreneurship since 2017. The very last company I was working for is Honeywell, and after Honeywell I quit Honeywell and I started failed in a good way in my first company. Then I had again started one more startup, and it's been almost close to 5 years. I've been running successfully my business, and the current company which I'm been associated with, where it's my own company, it's called as Datanap Technologies. And these are all some of the skill set which I've been extensively providing training as well as providing consulting for Indian as well as for abroad customers. And just a very brief intro about myself. As I said, I've been founder and CTO of Datanap since April 2018. And 2017 is the last when I worked for Honeywell. Before I was with Ernst & Young, and I have developed a product called as Route1 for GRC, which was like a very successful product in those days. And I started my career way back in 2010 with Wipro. And these are all some of the skills which I do. And apart from this, I'm also been associated with few of the charity foundations. And during my free time, I do stuff on that. And yes, so why this training? Training is my passion, and of course, I get some monetary benefit out of it. More than monetary benefit, training is my passion, and that's the reason I started one more venture within Datanap called as Gurukulam. So this training or this engagement, whatever we are going to do as a part of the Gurukulam foundation or the Gurukulam training model, is what we are going to follow. So the training, whatever I'm going to give, not only in terms of IAG, overall training, whatever any other training of Sarvesh, if you would have attended previously, or if you would have attending for the first time, or you are interested in IAG and you have pursued this training. After that, you might also be interested in process control, access control, or other modules of GRC, the wider GRC module. All this, the training model, what we follow is called as effective learning model. So that is not only just covering the practical side of just how to do, rather than that, why we need to do, and what we need to do in order to make this. So this is the entire principle which we follow for all this thing. Apart from IAG, I also take training on process control, access control, risk management, ABAP, audit management, business integrity screening, business partner screening, and on for privacy governance. So almost all concepts of cybersecurity, I'm well versed with, and I use it to take training in all this. Both individual trainings I take, and I also take corporate training. I have taken a couple of trainings in different corporates, like Wipro. I have taken training. I've taken training in Ernst & Young. I've taken training in Deloitte. I've taken training in HP Technical Consulting Services or DXC Technology. I've taken training in Infosys. I have taken training for SAP Labs. I mean, for SAP India, I have taken a couple of trainings. So that is all on India. Abroad, I've done a couple of trainings in Africa. I've done a couple of trainings in US and in Europe and Malaysia, Singapore as well. So just this is like a very brief intro about myself. So now, first and foremost thing you may ask me is, Sarvesh, like why IAG? Why we need IAG? Why we need to learn IAG? And of course, like what is this IAG is all about? What you are going to cover? What we are going to get benefit of this particular training? Why we need to learn IAG? So this is the first and the foremost question, almost like you all will ask, because if you see SAP's transformation, the way like all of us are almost close to 10 years, or like the average of all of us is we have been in SAP space since last 10 years. And one thing what we have seen, or what we could have seen, is like between 2015 or 2014, to be more specific, the traditional things which was happening in SAP since 2014, it all got changed rapidly, and now we are all seeing something which is new, and we are all continuously evolving, and we are all continuously learning in adopting this new things. Mainly the companies which we implement, or the companies which we work for. So there is a continuous shift in the way the things which happens in SAP. So in olden days, like that is in 2011, 2012, when I started, 2010 especially, like when I started, so I always had this, I keep hearing this terminology called as ABAP or ABAP stack, Java stack. And if you want to communicate from one system to another system, we use RFCs. And then like by default, like we have PFCG, so where we can go ahead and create role. And all these components comes because it's a part of SAP basis package, where the 5 default components gets come as a part of SAP NetWeaver. And 2004-5, when internet was like very transformational things which is there in internet. So even every company started adopting, and even SAP went ahead and they introduced this WebDynpro or NetWeaver AS or Web AS, where we can use web as an application server, or we can use, instead of SAP GUI, we can use internet as a model of communication, all that like we have seen. And absolutely 2007, 2008 time frame, the SAP had their own product called as process control and risk management, and they purchased a company called as Versa, and they can purchase one more company called as Maxwell Consulting, and then they formed a product called as GRC and IDM. And anything which is on GRC, like it was all like user management, role management, privilege management, and everything we can do it in GRC, and that become one single umbrella for all the provisioning, as well as like from the governance standpoint when it comes to SAP security side of it. Of course, when we want to improve in terms of the process control was there, and whenever we want to do anything on the risk management or the risk mitigation, then we used to go for risk management solution. Then slowly companies who have been having exponential systems in their place, so then in order to make, or in order to allow user to communicate or user to remember only one single password, so the SSO or single sign-on functionality was introduced. And all this were there since primitive ages, 2007 2006 timeframe it started, and it's been there since 2015-16. And again, between GRC and between the normal SU01 creating user, there was one more component called as CUA, or Central User Provisioning, where through CUA system, we used to do provisioning for all the systems. And all this is terminologies which we keep hearing. And since 2011, 2012 timeframe, when SAP went ahead and acquired a company called as Sybase, way back in 2011, 2010 timeframe, they acquired a company called as Sybase. And subsequently, they started evolving a product, and that product started making the lateral shift in the way the business operations in SAP happens, none other than SAP HANA. And then one more thing which also happened is Microsoft introduced a framework called as OData framework, or a one unified platform, or one unified technology, where if you develop an application in one single platform or one single technology, that application can become responsive and it can run in all different platforms, and that they call it as OData. and they introduced operating system called as Windows 8, which is the first operating system to be responsive in nature. The same operating system can run on mobile. The same operating system can run on laptop. The same operating system can run on tablet. So that changed the way the world operates, and there was a lateral shift in movement of cloud-based solutioning, and every company started investing in it and getting things in place on that. And even SAP wants to be in that race, and they participated in the race. And the first cloud version of SAP, which is S4 HANA Cloud, started getting award 5009 way back in 2015. And the way the things were happening since then, and in most of us, like, we are all aware of this, and the way, like, the things were happening more is all towards this cloud, this on premise. This is something which is not the same in case of cloud. So in case of cloud, all the technologies whatever we use, so the ABAP we can't use it in cloud. The reason why we can't use ABAP in cloud is for one simple reason, that ABAP is a language, proprietary language, which has been written exclusively for on-premise application and exclusively for cloud application, and exclusively for SAP application. And apart from this SAP application, it can't be used anywhere else. And the RFC is again a proprietary model or a proprietary logic which has been used by SAP in order to communicate between one system to another system. This is not something which is universal. And whenever we deal anything with cloud, we need to develop, or we need to provide a framework which is universal in nature, not specific to one single company's proprietary product. And same thing also goes to PFCG. So these are end of the day, all these are built on ABAP, and the way or the model through which all this happens is through transactions, which is itself is nothing but SAP's own way of doing things. And after this evolvement way back in 2014, 2015, so there is a lot of new things which we started getting to know, being as an SAP consultants. So, and we keep hearing this terminology called as SAP's Neo framework, or SAP's Neo platform. There is something called as API hub called as API.sap.com. You can go and look for an API. And then subsequently, there is something which we keep hearing called as JSON. And of course, like, we are going to learn about IAG, but this is also something which before this IAG, like, there was two more component called as IPS and IAS, Identity Provisioning Services and Identity Authentication Services. There is some technology called as CAMA layer. There is something called as Cloud Foundry. There is something called as Cloud Portal. Now all this are gone, and since 2018, SAP through Rise with SAP is saying something called as BTP, or Business Technology Platform. And we keep hearing about this applications, whether it is a service or whether it is an application or whether it is a platform. They call it as a software as a service, platform as a service, application as a service, infrastructure as a service, and so on. So end of the day, all this is actually, like, there is a lateral shift, or the way things which used to happen in SAP, and now whatever, like, we are seeing over here, so there is a lateral shift which is happening in SAP. That is, like, since SAP is in the journey of, or SAP is transforming more from an on-premise application to a cloud application. So there is a requirement for filling up this particular gap. And based on my experience working on all this technology, not only IAG, I have extensively worked on Neo, I have extensively worked on Cloud Foundry, I have extensively worked on BTP, I've extensively worked on API communication, and through the learnings, like, whatever I have. So the main reason, or the primary reason for this particular session, or for this particular training, is to make sure that whatever we do from the GRC perspective, whatever we are doing traditionally in the GRC perspective as of today, how the future is going to be in IAG, or whether is it all these applications, whatever, all the functionalities, whatever we do it in this on-premise, whether we are matured enough to do the same thing in IAG. And more importantly, what if we have a customer situation, or we have a customer challenge, that in which places we can implement IAG, what are all the different offerings SAP as a product provides this, and what and all we need to keep in mind when we want to implement IAG, which situation we should accept or which situation we need to propose IAG, which situation we should not accept or in which situation we should not propose IAG. And absolutely, like in terms of the technology, how IAG has been developed or how IAG has been built, and if we are installing IAG, what is important things which we should know? What is meant by tenant? What is meant by global account? What is meant by sub account? What is meant by enrollment? What is meant by entitlement? What is meant by roles? How the concept of role collection works? All these IAG specific items. Plus, absolutely, IAG cannot exist without IPS and IAS. So, what is identity provisioning services? How the identity provisioning services works, and all that is like what we will be learning in the overall training. So the main reason or the primary reason which we need to learn IAG is since 2012, the SAP's roadmap, if you see from the wider SAP's roadmap, the companies which they are trying to acquire or the products which has been developed by SAP, it's all towards or inclined towards cloud. And down the line, so the entire SAP transformation, mainly through Rise with SAP, it's going to happen through cloud. And if that's the case, and if it has been successful, then even the user provisioning and everything, there should be one unified platform for all the user provisioning. And that particular platform or that particular application is going to be IAG. Let me explain with an example. So way back in 2013 or 2012, 2013 timeframe, SAP first went and acquired SuccessFactors. So after SuccessFactors, if you see all the companies which has been acquired by SAP, so with the first thing is the SuccessFactors they acquired, which is again a cloud-based application. Then they acquired a very big acquisition. I'm telling about the big acquisitions, a multi-billion-dollar acquisition. So the second big acquisition they did is on Ariba, which was again a multi-billion-dollar acquisition. And then they acquired Concur, and then they acquired Quatrix, then they acquired Signovia. So the very recent acquisition is on AppGear way back in 2021. And all this acquisition, if you see one common thing, all these applications which has been industrially number one application. So the supplier portal, Ariba supplier portal was number one when the acquisition was happening, and it is all cloud-based products. And even any product which SAP is developing on a bigger way, starting from BTP. So the BTP, though it is a complete offering. So all the products or all the modules or all the concepts what we have in BTP, it is all cloud driven, or we call it as a cloud first approach. And this way, if we want to perceive our career or if we want to improve our skill, so anything, forgetting about IHG for a minute, anything which we would like to perceive going forward, if at all like we would like to enrich our knowledge, so the best thing what we can do is invest on anything which is cloud based, because that is going to be the future. And that is why IAG is very important, or the IAG training what we are going to perceive, or like what you would be perceiving. So this is utmost important and the need for an hour, because SAP GRC does not have a capability to do provisioning for SAP Analytics on cloud. SAP GRC does not have a provisioning to do any cloud-based services. SAP GRC cannot integrate with Azure Active Directory. SAP GRC cannot integrate with Ariba SuccessFactors. To some extent, it can integrate, but end-to-end cloud provisioning is not possible through Ariba and SuccessFactors. And of course, same thing also goes. SAP GRC cannot be integrated with S/4HANA Cloud. And all this leads to there should be one single identity governance tool, both for on-premise and for cloud. And that is nothing but the IAG, which is what like we are going to discuss in detail in this particular session.
Yeah, Sarvesh, one thing.
Yes, please.
You mentioned SAP S4 HANA is on cloud, and will it be on premise as well?
Yes, so there are, if you see S4 HANA, it offers, I mean, S4 HANA, it comes in two different flavors, sir. S/4HANA on-premise and S/4HANA cloud. So the difference between both of this is S/4HANA on-premise, the very recent version which you are seeing is S/4HANA 2022, which is the same box which we'll be using for all of our practice purpose or for the demo purpose. And this S/4HANA on-premise, it comes on a yearly release, meaning every year it is going to get released, and the customer can have a upgradation every yearly, or they can stick on to one particular release and then they can do it. So that is like S/4HANA on-premise, where it comes like on-premise software, which is similar to that of what we have this ECC, what we used to have previously. S/4HANA on cloud is, and again S/4HANA on-premise, the local IT infrastructure team, meaning the local IT team should take care of all the installation and all the maintenance, and it follows the traditional ECC approach: upgradation, migration, transformation, all that. Whereas in case of S/4HANA on cloud, this is something which you pay on subscription basis, like how you can use a ServiceNow, which if you might be using ServiceNow, and you might be using all other cloud products where you pay it on a subscription basis. And this is something which will be like kind of every 3 months once there will be an upgradation. Quarterly upgradation will happen, and you can, if you want, you can defer the upgradation, but most of the time you can't defer the upgradation. And all this infrastructure and everything will be taken care by SAP itself, and the application will not be hosted on your premise. Rather, the application will be hosted on one of the signed hyperscalers, whether it is Azure or whether it is Amazon or whether it is Google GCP or it is Alibaba. So based on whichever hyperscalers which you have signed an agreement with, so through them you can deploy the solution. So that's the difference. S/4HANA on cloud is a cloud-based ERP solution where you don't need any local infrastructure team to take care of it. S/4HANA on-premise is where you need a local infrastructure team, and it is very similar to that of like what we have our ECC.
Okay, got it. So this IAG, we can use it for both on-prem and as well as cloud-based.
100%. So IAG supports both on-premise and cloud versions. So for on-premise, you need to integrate or you need to communicate through something called as SAP Cloud Connector, which is also one of the topic which we'll be discussing in the course of our training.
Okay.
And so it supports, it is hosted on cloud, meaning IAG itself is not an on-premise solution. It is a application which is residing in BTP platform, and it supports only, it is developed and it is built on cloud, but it has a capability to integrate with on-premise system as well as the cloud system at this point of time.
Okay. Understood. This IAG built on BTP platform.
Yes.
Are we going in deeper to learn something related to BTP or only the IAG one?
We will be going in deeper to learn about a few of the concepts which is very much related for us from the BTP perspective. We'll be definitely telling. That is the next important topic which I'll be speaking also.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, sir. So this particular section is all about that. This particular section, what I am going to show, is only about BTP. Okay. Yeah. So if we want to know about IAG, we need to know about BTP. If we want to know about BTP, we need to know about what is SAP Cloud history. Because like Sarvesh, way back in 2013, I came across this word called as SAP Web IDE. Like everyone was telling S/4HANA, everyone was telling about UI5 application we need to do, Fiori application we need to create, Fiori provisioning, people used to tell Fiori security, SAP security is more into Fiori security. Everything, the transaction is replaced by tiles and groups. All this we used to keep hearing as a security consultants. Now, if you want to understand the architectural side of what was happening is, in 2013, like when Microsoft introduced this UI5 or HTML5, which is nothing but one single framework which can be used to discrete applications of whether it is like mobile, whether it is tablet or whether it is laptop. You create one application, and based on the size of the application, based on the size of the device, the application will be responsive in nature and it can adopt itself. So there is no need of three different programming models, or there is no three different programs which needs to be written, no three different types of maintenance which is required, and so on. So then every company started adopting that particular framework. And since SAP did not had their own framework, they took this Microsoft UI5 framework as a backbone, and on top of it, they added their own flavors to it and released something called as Open UI5. So this Open UI5 is basically a library, which is a free source library, which SAP can use, SAP partners can use, SAP customers can use this particular Open UI5 library, and they can get all things which to develop an application. And they created the framework, or they created a technology to do this or to drive this, and they call that technology as Web IDE. And this Web IDE is the first ever cloud offering which has been provided by SAP as it is, because all other things are what companies they acquired. Ariba they acquired, SuccessFactors they acquired. That is not something homegrown product of SAP, whereas SAP's Web IDE is a homegrown product of SAP. And they introduced this Web IDE inside a platform, and that platform is called as SAP Neo platform. And later, what happened? The SAP started understanding the importance of unification. SuccessFactors is running one side, Ariba is running one side, SAP is running one side. So customer who want to use SAP holistically, that the beauty of SAP ERP, if you see SAP's ERP, the beauty of SAP ERP is MM is there, data will already pass to SD. SD is there, data will pass already to FI. FI is there, data will already pass to PP. PP is there, data will already pass to PS. So this unification is missing in cloud offering and on-premise offering. So they had a thought about it, and 2015 they improved this, or they nurtured this particular cloud platform. And instead of calling it as a Neo platform, they started calling it as an SAP HANA cloud platform, where they use HANA cloud integration. That point of time, you might be keep hearing a word which was like a buzzword in 2015 to 2017. It's called as HCI and HCP, HANA cloud integration and HANA cloud platform. And people use it to love integrating the applications through one single API, which has been provided in HANA library. And the HANA cloud platform was, or they call it as CPI, or they use it to call it as CPI. And through that, all the communication used to happen. And later, SAP for some reason thought, if we tell it as HANA, then people will think that it is only for the customer who is on HANA. There is a reason, like where even some of my on-premise system, which is not there in HANA also, I need to get into the situation. So then they rebranded this name from HANA Cloud Platform, and they introduced the word called as Cloud Platform, SAP Cloud. And all this HCI, HCP, they call it as SCI and SCPs. That is nothing but SAP Cloud Integration and SAP Cloud Platform. They removed that HCI and HCP and they converted it to SCI and SCP. And all that is still the same. So the logic is the same. And in 2018-2019 time frame, because of the openness which is there in the industry, so all the open source and all the open things started evolving more and more and more in the entire industry of IT. And SAP also wants to stay in this particular race. And they introduced something called as BTP, or Business Technology Platform, where they opened the doors for not only SAP's application, SAP's partners application, SAP's third-party integration application, and SAP's customer application, cloud applications. Everything can reside in one single umbrella, which is very similar to that of what strategically they made in 2004 by introducing SAP NetWeaver. So till the time SAP NetWeaver was introduced, everything was spread across different things. And SAP NetWeaver is a kind of an unification which has been brought in by SAP to get things in a holistic picture. So the same concept is what SAP has done in 2018, 2019, and they introduced BTP. And BTP is a current trending thing which is happening in SAP. And what SAP promises is BTP is going to be having the future roadmap of one single unified platform for all the cloud offerings, or for all the cloud applications, or for all the cloud deployments, everything will happen through BTP. And BTP, end of the day, it is nothing but it's again a brand or a name which has internally linked to all this different environments. It supports ABAP environment, it supports Gamma environment, it supports Cloud Foundry environment, it also supports Neo environment. All these are different environments which it supports. Nothing but people can develop application by using any one of this architecture, and still they can use BTP as one single unified placeholder or one single unified entry point to access applications which is developed in Neo platform, which is developed in Cloud Foundry platform, which is developed in Gamma platform, or they can be developed in ABAP platform. And all this can be rendered and accessed in one single umbrella called as BTP. And it can also open doors to other applications which can be integrated and consume or get data securely and safely through integration platform which has been provided within the tool. And customer can also experience it, or like they can develop their own low code no code framework that is also part of the BTP itself. Like you might be keep hearing this word no code low code in almost all the recent tech talks of SAP or in SAP TechEd. The low code no code is the word which they use it more. So that is nothing but in BTP we have something called as AppGear and many other tools which provides the option for end users to develop their own applications. There is no need to dependent on ABAP or functional. Rather, end user can develop their own applications by drag and drop with zero knowledge of technical knowledge, and that can enrich applications. So that is called as a citizen developers. And they can use in order to, they can develop their own applications irrespective of having a functional consultant or a technical consultant. And of course, they can extend the applications, and they can use other cloud connectors and cloud offerings to enrich the data. All this is done in one single place, which is what we call it as BTP. And again, there are different things about BTP, like what are all the different entry points we have for BTP. So BTP also has two kinds of entry points, which we'll be discussing in detail in subsequent session. Then our Sarvesh, why we are learning so deeper? That is because IAG itself is on BTP. And to understand IAG, we should know what is BTP, how the BTP subscription model works. So our training starts from how we can subscribe to IAG. So from a global, how to create a global account, how to create a sub account inside the global account, then how to subscribe, do the entitlement for BTP for IAG, and then how to subscribe for IAG, what is the licensing model, all that we'll be covering in the section. And this is just like a kind of overview. And again, one of you has asked, Sarvesh, whether IAG can be integrated to an on-premise system. So that is what also we'll be discussing. And not only IAG, BTP can be connected to on-premise system. So even like an ABAPer does the program in UI5, and that program needs to be end of the day deployed in on-premise if the customer don't have any cloud offering. So not only from the IAG perspective, BTP can be communicated to an on-premise environment securely and safely by using the concept of Cloud Connector. We'll be discussing in detail about Cloud Connector, what is Cloud Connector, how we can integrate, or like what we need to do in order to establish a secure connection between the BTP and the Cloud Connector. All that like we'll be discussing in detail in the subsequent topic. So this is also something which we'll be extensively speaking before getting into the actual subject. So now, as I was just specifying, BTP itself is not sufficient, or understanding IAG itself is not sufficient. We should also understand what is the equivalent on-premise offering which has been provided by SAP, and how we can correlate things, because it is very easy. This is what I call it like the data on effective learning model. So if we want to understand a new thing, we should also know, or we should know how to correlate that with the existing thing. And it becomes easy for a human brain to understand what we know and what we want to know. So that's the reason what I will be also covering, or I'll be speaking, is If I'm speaking anything about IPS, I'll be also speaking about identity management and how it all got connected and what is there in identity management and what is not there in identity management, because of which we need identity provisioning services. And same thing goes here also. What is there in access control? The same equivalent is what we have it in IAG, but what is not there in access control, which is there in IAG, what is not there in IAG, which is there in access control, which leads to our IAG bridge scenario, where we can leverage or we can use access control itself to do few of the things which IAG does not have any capability to do it. So all that is also what we are going to discuss. Same thing will be also speaking about identity authentication services, or IAS, where we will be speaking about the same concept, how we can correlate to our single sign-on and how the concept of identity authentication services works, how to connect identity authentication services with IAG and with IPS. All that is what we will also be discussing in detail in upcoming session. More importantly, Sarvesh, okay, all this what you said is great. Tell me like what we are going to learn as a part of this IAG as a overall. So in IAG, I categorize this IAG into three different sections. So the first section is a master data section, where we'll be reading about the complete master data setup, how to do it in IAG step by step for all the master datas, for all the functionalities and so on. And then we'll be also seeing how to do the configuration, like how we have SPRO configuration in GRC. We also have very similar configurations in IAG. What is something which can be done by us, what is something which can be done by SAP, where we need to get in SAP self, where we need to do ourselves, when SAP will support, when SAP will not support, what is possible, what is not possible. All that in the configuration we'll be discussing in detail. And then we'll be also discussing about workflows. So the very important advantage of our access control is MSMP. So the same way, like even in IAG, we have something very similar to that called as business rules and business rules framework. We are going to read about that. And we'll also read what are all the standard out of box content which is there in SAP IAG and how we can tweak it and where we need to use. All that is also what we are going to study in detail. And one of you has asked, Service, like, do we get any lab support or like how to access this particular system? And like just show us like how this IAG looks like. So this is how our DataNub IAG looks like. And I will go to our DataNub IAG and then let me log in with my ID. So this is DataNub's IAG system where you will be all practicing. So this is like the administration. So the reporting, what are all the different reportings we have. We'll be also seeing about the risk analysis, role designing, access request, and how to do the access request. And then how to do privilege access management, which is nothing but emergency access management, FF concept, what we have in GRC, how we can do it in IAG. All that we will be learning. In addition to that, we'll be also learning the third-party applications, meaning the non-IH, non-on-premise applications, which has been developed by SAP, which is not developed in ABAP framework, like SAC, SAP Analytics on Cloud, and SuccessFactors. So we will be seeing how to sitting in IAG, how to create user in SAP Analytics Cloud, sitting in IAG, how to create users in our ECC system, sitting in IAG, how we can create users in GRC. I have my rule set already in GRC and I want to get that into IAG, how to do it. I have my functions and risk already in GRC. In my IAG, I want to get it, how to do it. All that is what we'll be learning in detail, the step by step with all the different use cases. And any questions so far, what we have discussed?
Yeah, like, can I know like what is the duration of this course and is this a daily one or weekend
Yes.
session?
Yes. So like,
That sounds good.
yeah, great. So the duration of this course is going to be between 45 hours to 50 hours, because like some of the use cases, so like what we are going to do is like we are going to have both practical and theory. So that way, some of the practical sessions we may encounter a challenge and we may need to fix the challenge and move on. So it will be between 45 hours to 50 hours is the duration of this. And even like I'm running my firm, and like even like I'm also a working profession. So that's the reason, like it will not be on a daily basis. So it will be only on weekend, the same time like what we are connecting now. So the 10 to 2 or 10 to 1:30 it will be our session on both Saturdays and Sundays. And we will be targeting somewhere close to around like 1.5 month duration. We'll be completing this entire course. So it will be like some approximately 10 hours a week, and we'll be closing it in 5 to 6 weeks. So that's the duration which we are looking at.
Okay. Do we have any certification kind of thing for IAG?
Yeah, in standard SAP at this point of time, or till this point of time, there is no standard SAP certification has been provided for this. And of course, like we can give from Datana, but it is not useful because SAP does not have any certification, and so even if we give certification, that will be that's not something industrially recognizable. We are also in the work of getting partnership for SAP's learning center also. So that way, like we can give that certification, but it will not be that useful to put it in your profile. So rather the knowledge what you are gaining is the certificate, I would say, like that.
Okay. So thank you, Sarvesh. I'm good.
Awesome.
Can we take any? Are there any takeaways like some materials kind of things?
Yes, absolutely, sir. Like you will be taking away. So this training recording, you will have access to 3 months. Server access also, you will have access to 3 months. So after this training, also you will get to practice. Apart from this, the cookbook, what I like, I already have a cookbook which I will be also sharing. That is something which you can use and implement IAG. Along with that, I think if you are already following me in LinkedIn, even SAP endorses my courses, and I mean, not my courses, my content. So all that is what I will be sharing with you guys also as a part of this entire thing. Okay, then. Awesome. Thank you.